Apologies about that. Good evening and welcome. My name is Celeste Prescott, Public Information Officer with Southwest Incident Management Team 1. I'm going to go ahead and start out with some acres for the current Cav Canyon and Hermits Peak perimeter is sitting at 313,230 acres, and we are up to 48% contained. That's a total of 634 miles of perimeter, and we are up to 2,950 personnel assigned to the incident. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Southwest Incident Management Team 1 Operations Section Chief Jason Coyle.
Hi, good evening. So today we started our transition process with the Pacific Northwest Team Number 2. So I thought I'd just give you a little bit of information about what we do and how these transitions can actually be beneficial to the success of an incident. Number one is after 14 plus days of being on an incident, there's certainly a potential, at least, for the quality of our decisions to degrade. And there's also assumptions that we make that we may not have tested in a while. So as we interact with our counterparts from the PNW2 team, one of the things that we do as far as that strategic thinking and strategic planning process goes is we talk about the patterns that we've recognized as far as fire behavior goes in different areas, and then we question our assumptions about those patterns and whether they'd still be valid right now. We also conceptualize what we think the fire is going to do in the future and how our actions relate to that. And then we talk about how we've been testing those assumptions to make sure that those assumptions are still valid. So through that whole process, we're able to better ensure that the planning process that we've been engaged in and the execution of those actions on the ground is still the right thing to do, because those things change over time. So it's an important process. It's a process that we're dedicated to making sure goes well, and it's a process that, if done correctly, can actually provide benefit to coming up with new and innovative approaches to some of the problems that we're facing or that may be faced in the future. So with that, I will go to the map and we'll talk about what's going on today, or what happened today. I think we'll start over here on the east side. Engines are still patrolling along the 434 road all the way from Sierra Bonita south to where the intersection is there in Mora, and then all the way up through Cleveland and Holman, and all the way up towards Chacon. So today there was actually a structure fire that was unrelated to the wildland fire that occurred, and some of those patrolling resources were able to help the local fire department in extinguishing that fire and also in preventing that fire from spreading to the interface. Up around the Division Kilo, that part around Martinez Pond, where we've been talking about for several days, ensuring that this is secure because of the location of this hand line on these very steep slopes. Another crew is in there today, continuing to work that edge, and everything in there is looking good. And by that I mean that there was no threats to the line that were identified. Going down to the south along the west side of the fire here, going towards the 518, this area where we talked about the fire's edge being off of the dozer line, another hotshot crew was inserted in here today, and they worked this edge, and everything with the IR and with what they saw there confirms the fact that edge is secure. We'll continue to keep eyes on this over the coming days, especially with the stronger winds, to see if any heat is exposed in there. Moving further to the west along the direct hand line that goes west from Angostura to the spot, there were some pieces of heat this morning that were identified near the edge, and those were worked along with additional gridding for any spots off to the north on these steep slopes that may create a potential for increased fire activity that could threaten the 518 road. Around the spot, there's a couple areas of heat low on the spot where this dozer line is, so on the northeast side of it, going towards the 518 road. They were able to extinguish those and continue to ensure that spot remained just a spot and that there was no growth outside of the perimeter. So I'll go down the south first then. All the way down here, we're keeping eyes on this from the aircraft, and they're working to get resources going down further to the south. The area that created the most smoke today for our incident was this horseshoe here that is north of Horseshoe Lake and south of Serpent Lake. So it's only a horseshoe if you look at it like this, I guess, anyways, we call it a horseshoe. And there was some heat down here on the southern end of that horseshoe, closer to the Horseshoe Lake. And then, but in the area there closer to Serpent Lake, there was no heat that looked like it was going to be a threat to the line. While I'm down in this section, down further to the south, there was activity it'd be about due west of Upper Rosiata, and on the western edge of the fire that was putting up most of the smoke. And based on the prevailing winds out of the west-southwest, that smoke would have gone all the way over to Holman and across, and would have probably been visible to all of the communities along the 518, the 121, and the 434 corridors. Down here to the west, from Ripley's Point to the south, finished tying that dozer line into the hard rock here where the Skyline Divide begins, and then continue to work to improve that dozer line along the road down to Bear Mountain, and then all the way back out and up to the monastery. Up to the north here at the Amole fire scar, the dozers that were in here working that made it as far as Gallegos Peak yesterday, were able to continue to push north and east and are about north of Serra del Osa today. And they'll continue to work on getting that line over the next several days connected all the way back up here to the Luna fire scar. Up on the northern end, up here in we'll just call it this east-west line in divisions Sierra and Victor, the timber resources are working west along this line and opening up that fire line to create that shaded fuel break we've discussed many times in the past. That's still a multi-day effort, which is ongoing. And there's also efforts north along the Division Oscar line that we're continuing to push that dozer line all the way to the north, and then again open up that shaded fuel break to provide a secondary means of protecting the community of Black Lakes, and then of course of Black Lake and Angel Fire. So collectively, if we went around, summarized it, there's direct fire attack going on right here. There's repellers that are being inserted down here to take care of this piece of fire, and there's all the work that's being done around the perimeter to ensure that if either one of those efforts are unsuccessful and fire moves to the north, that we'll have a primary and a secondary line to be able to control that fire and prevent it from impacting the values and the communities adjacent to the perimeter. That will be the end of today's report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. And for those that did not join us last night, I did want to remind you that we have us being the Southwest Incident Management Team 1 has assumed command of the Eastern Zone. So it's now just the North and South zones. And we're going to turn it down to our partners of the South for California Interagency Incident Management Team 5 Operations Section Chief Alex McBath.
All right, good evening, everybody. I want to talk to you a little bit today about what reburn means and the use of that term. So reburn is an area of the fire that's already been burnt through once, and then either due to green islands out in the middle of the burn or just the vegetation that's still left after the first burn, it reburns through that area again. So I'm going to talk to you about a particular area up here in Big Pine. Today we had some pretty good winds, probably in the 30 to 40 mile an hour coming out of the west, and up on the skyline it came across skyline right here, and it picked up some heat, and it got up and started running downslope towards the community of Big Pine. We've got folks up in there. We've hit it with aircraft, and everything's looking like it should stabilize here as soon as evening comes on. But that potential's out there. When we're in critical weather, anywhere on this fire, we could have a reburn of some type. So I guess what I ask is for those places that have been repopulated and are in a ready or a set, just keep in mind you are in a fire footprint, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're safe. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and run you around. I've talked about Big Pine a little bit. They've got some crews up in there, some engines monitoring that. and they'll have some stuff in there tonight. Moving on along the east side of the whole perimeter, we had no smokes pop up today from the wind. The wind down here in Las Vegas was fairly steady out of the west, and it didn't cause any flare-ups down here in the valley. Moving on around to the southwest corner, Barrias Peak and Rodoso Ridge and Bull Creek, the East Fork of Bull Creek. Those are all tied together now. So the spot fire we had yesterday up by Barrias Peak was about 75 acres. They got line on it last night. They've been mopping it up today. That's all tied back in. The 82 Alpha Delta Road to the southwest is all tied in. We didn't get any more spots. And then where it connects into the 203 around to Bull Creek, that's all up against line now, and they're just holding it and mopping it up. They're being vigilant for any spots, but with the wind being out of the west, it seems to be throwing any ember wash or embers into the black and not across their lines. So that's really good news for those folks down there in holding that Bull Creek. Coming up on the north side of Bull Creek, the East Fork of Bull Creek, where this finger is, they have line on it. It keeps spotting out on them, but the spots, when it does spot out, is moving towards the north, back to the black, so they're able to re-engage, and they just keep going direct and tying it back into Skyline. So no threat to any of the communities coming out of there with those spots until the weather changes significantly, and we don't see that in the next few days. So we're looking at having this all tied around the southwest corner and back up to Skyline and mopped up in the next 2 days. So that's really good work out there. Coming along Skyline, of course, the winds picked up. There was a slop over, and I talked to you a little bit about slop overs last night, and we had a crew up in there early this morning and picked that up. It was about 3 to 5 acres, and it was trying to burn back into itself, so it wasn't any issue or threat, but the crews went up there and took care of that. And then going up to Elk Mountain, everything stayed within its perimeter. So all good news on the southwest corner today. Moving up into Spring Mountain, this fire up in the higher elevations, we looked at, it's about 11,000 feet. It's still burning that timber stand I told you about last night. It's still burning in that timber stand. It's still putting up a lot of smoke in there. We had aircraft hitting it and holding the south side into Bear Creek off the Skyline, and that was fairly successful today, but it was water dropper scoopers. They're fixed wing water droppers, and they worked this up here all day today and knocked it down from moving to the south. So no movement to the south towards the communities. But the north end of Spring Mountain is still in that timber stand, and it's going to be burning for the next couple of days and probably into the future a little bit longer until we can get in there and do something with it with hand crews. Moving on up to the divide, no other issues. Everything seemed to be very quiet up at 12,000 feet, so that's good. And then the structure protection group has been augmenting as needed the other divisions and resources to help support the mop up and catch any of the spots that may occur. Up on Iron Gate Road and Elk Mountain Road, they're still working that and making it pretty bulletproof in case this fire should want to move that way. And they're also looking for and constructing line a little bit closer to that to try to give us a closer control feature to that south end. So real good in there. The crews going up in the wilderness, they're spiked out at Beatty's Camp. They have hand lines secured all the way up Hamilton Ridge to Beatty's Camp and moving up the Pecos River Trail to the divide. And they're thinking 3 days to finish that hand line up, and then there'll be more days of monitoring and watching this fire to make sure it doesn't cross that line. So overall, other than a few slops, we still have critical weather for the next 3 days, so we expect more of that type of fire activity, and we have the resources to deal with it. So feeling pretty good about it. So back over to you.
Thank you very much, Alex. We appreciate all that detailed explanation. I'm going to turn it over to our fire behavior analyst, Stuart Turner, for the latest that we expect in fire behavior.
Good evening, Stuart Turner. I'm the fire behavior analyst for Southwest Team 1. As the fire behavior analyst, what I do is I predict what the fire is going to do, where it's going to go, how big it's going to get, how fast it's going to get there. And I look at three things. I look at the topography, the slope, the hills. I look at the fuels and the weather. So as you heard from everybody, the weather's a big concern for us. And let me just share my screen here, and we'll take a look at the matrix, and we'll just get right into the weather. So tomorrow, red flag warning is the big message for tomorrow. We are squarely back into fire weather once again. High winds, low humidity, poor overnight recovery. The fuel beds are extremely dry and receptive to any kind of ember or accident out there as far as with fire. So tomorrow is going to be a big fire day out there with all the line we have that's open and have fuels available to it. We will see perimeter growth. That perimeter growth will primarily be on the west side in certain areas that are very active right now. But the thing to think about is that there can be a new start just about anywhere in the area from human activity along interstates, highways. There can be a new start from a spot fire that has been sleeping all this time for the last several days, just outside the control lines, or spot fire from any kind of ember wash that may come off of a torching tree or an errant pine cone rolling down the slope and crossing the control line. With these gusty winds that we're expecting tomorrow, I do expect to see the aircraft be shut down in the afternoon. So it will be even more difficult for crews to pick up any kind of slop overs or spots around the fire. So it's going to be a very interesting fire weather day. As we look out come Sunday and Monday, we already have red flag flying for Sunday. So those high winds are going to even get higher, and the humidity is going to be down low enough that we will continue to see that activity. The thing to look at here is the overnight humidity recovery is poor. So what that means is those fuels will dry out through the day and stay fairly dry through the night. The other thing is we're moving our winds down to the southwest, taking that westerly component out of it and making it more of a southwest component. So that's going to influence where the fire is going to be pushed to. Then on Monday, Tuesday, we continue with those dry conditions. The winds are still going to be elevated. Probably we'll see those turn into red flag days as we get closer to them. So stay tuned for that. And then as we get into Wednesday, Thursday, we're starting to see some moisture come in, possible thunderstorms. Those may be dry thunderstorms with associated dry lighting, so we'll have to see what that brings for us at that time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the map so we can discuss what I think is going to happen around the fire tomorrow. Well, let's see if this is going to work for us, folks. It's not cooperating for me. Let me stop sharing again. Turn this on, turn that off. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, let's start up here at the north side. We'll start at the northeast corner. Not anticipating any problems out there. It's been pretty well taken care of up there. I don't think we'll see anything come out, although we always have that possibility of an errant ember getting out into that receptive fuel bed. This line will once again be tested with that southwest wind, but I'm not anticipating any problems there. As we come down to 121 corridor, we did see a little bit of activity there yesterday afternoon. I think we'll continue to see some of that tomorrow, and that will be mostly just backing fire and cleaning up any kind of interior fuel pockets that are hanging around in there. Then north of Chacon, don't think we'll see any issues there, but it's going to be a really good test for those folks. And then over here in Angostoria, that's going to be the big area that I think will be tested tomorrow. There could always be some spots out there. You heard Operations Jason talking about the crews gridded out there looking for any spots that are out there. And those spots would be spots that went out there several days ago and been sleeping. And believe it or not, those embers can hold in those heavy fuels for many, many days before they come alive when we get this extreme fire behavior weather. So we'll have to see what happens there tomorrow if any of that comes alive. Now, as we come down south on the west side, that southwest wind is pretty favorable for almost all the line. The little nook and crannies that may kind of fill in, But for the most part, everything should ember wash back into the fire itself and not spread. It's going to have to back into the wind and try to find some slope to work. And that's what's going to happen, I think, here in the Spring Mountain area. We're going to see some of that working in there, where it's going to try to get on the slope, work the slope, get a line in the canyons, and then make some runs up towards the northeast, but go back into itself and not do a lot of perimeter growth to the west. As we come down into the Bull Canyon area and down to the fingers, the prevailing winds out of the southwest will push everything back in. Not expecting any issues with the new control line they have between the two fingers. That's going to be very favorable, pushing the embers back into the black. The only issue, as you heard from operations in the south zone, is going to be along that northern finger, along the north edge. That's going to be pushed with wind, pushing fire, ember across the line out into the green or unburned fuels, but it will also push it back into itself, into the black. Not anticipating any kind of issues there, but that's just going to continue to be a nuisance for those folks there on the southern finger, the south end of that finger, the south flank of that finger. Favorable winds pushing fire back into the black. No issues along the entire southern area of the fire. And then as we come up through Las Vegas, going all the way north along the east side, not anticipating any problems. The wind will just test that. Now let's take a look at the model run that I have for tomorrow. I get this to work. There we go. There. Okay, so we were talking about the Spring Mountain area, and everybody's concerned about that. Let's just fly up there and take a look at that. Did a model run, see what would happen if that fire continues to grow. This yellow where the 1 is, that's today. The 2 is tomorrow. 3, 4, and 5 day run. So you can see some growth there, but not really big growth to the west. It's struggling against that wind. The wind's pushing it back into itself and not allowing it to really grow to the west at all. But what it wants to do is grow to the northeast, following the ridges, following these canyons, and making those big runs back into the black, and pretty much is self-extinguishing once it hits the black fuel up here that it can't burn anymore. So you can see the typical growth with that southwest wind. And remember, this is if we have no suppression action today, tomorrow, for the next 5 days. So, that's probably not going to happen. Sometime in there, we're going to have aircraft and get up early in the morning. They'll help suppress some of this and hold it back. But this gives you an idea of the potential over the next 5 days that could happen coming out of that Spring Mountain area. Okay, let's just stop sharing the screen there. I'm going to check my notes, make sure I covered all my spots. Could be seeing spotting 3/4 to a mile tomorrow. That's going to be a big problem if we see that out there. And then, of course, in the afternoon, I don't think we're going to see the aircraft flying. And then with the low humidity recovery tomorrow, I think the fire is going to burn not only through tonight, but through tomorrow night also. End of report. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. And we're going to turn it back down to our partners. Oh, have we gotten back yet? All right, sorry about that. We're going to turn it back down to our partners on the south first. San Miguel County Sheriff Chris Lopez.
Thank you, Celeste, and good evening, everybody. So I'll go ahead and start with today's events. I know operations was talking about, I guess, Reburn, which was kind of what we're dealing with today. There was a pretty decently sized pocket of unburned fuel there in the Big Pine area, which is the upper Gallinas Canyon. So we went ahead and we have, currently as we speak, we have law enforcement up there, and there's a handful of people that had repopulated that area. And so we're working on evacuating them back out until that can be safe again. There is a lot of black in that area, but there is like I said, there's a good sized pocket of unburned fuel in there that's being consumed right now that firefighters are working on. So, I just want to put that out there. And that specifically is the Calf Canyon subdivision that we're working on now. And if more needs to happen, we'll definitely let people know as soon as we know. But that's really that Calf Canyon subdivision is right against that pocket of ungreen or unburned fuel that I'm talking about right now. That ops has been that law enforcement and operations has been talking about. So, like I said, life safety is our primary concern and responsibility. So we figured it's just best to get them out. Something that we definitely try and avoid doing, but in this case, we're having to do it. So just be aware and know that we're working on that as we speak right now. With that, I'd also like to talk about the Pecos Corridors. That's been really a big focus for us the last several days, and as I've been talking about moving into this wind event and really the line having a chance to be tested. The good thing again is we still have the good winds, the west-southwest wind direction. We don't have good wind speeds or much else in terms of fire weather, but it is definitely pushing into itself. And as you heard from operations, there's things are looking pretty promising in terms of their work up there. So, hopefully that continues to hold and they can continue to make that more safe each and every day, so we can start looking at repopulation at some point. And again, I did want to mention, if you look at Wednesday, there's a predicted easterly wind, which those are the ones that always worry me, because those are the ones that are pushing directly back into that canyon. Of course, on that day, the weather looks pretty decent. It's one of the better days that I've seen since our fire season started, so that's pretty exciting anyway. But those are things that we definitely want to keep an eye out. Anytime I see that wind direction, I get a little nervous because that seems like that's when we've had our issues. But those are all the things that we have to look at in terms of making sure that we're making the right decisions in putting people back in there not too early. And so that's just something that I kind of wanted to cover. It's definitely been a very busy day in terms of continuing our collaboration and our work with our state and federal partners, not only in fire suppression but also in recovery and also in flood mitigation as we continue to prepare and ramp up our efforts to make sure that we're ready to go when or if we start seeing monsoonal rain and whatnot. So definitely some very busy days for us. And we'll continue to work as best as we can to serve the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. And now we're going to turn it over to Colfax County Sheriff Leonard Baca.
Good evening, everyone. This is Leonard Baca, Colfax County Sheriff. We had another meeting today. Everything is looking good. In that meeting, we've been taken back in by Southwest Team 1 back into the North Zone. But we've met with those folks today. We'll continue to meet even through the weekend. Hopefully some more good news later on next week. As I was driving around up in the area, I did notice a lot of the traffic that I've been speaking about the last few days with the holiday coming up for Memorial Weekend. Lots of traffic, lots of fire equipment. So I just want to caution everyone to please stay safe and watch out for our firefighters and all that equipment through the weekend. Also just wanted to remind everybody that the communities that we have left in ready status, just to be cautious and still be prepared. We are going to have those winds that everybody's been speaking about this evening, testing those lines. It looks really good, but just please be aware of that as we move through the weekend. Other than that's all I have. Thank you, Celeste, and thank you to everyone out there.
Thank you, Sheriff. We do appreciate those safety messages as well. And I had a chance to speak with Mora County Under Sheriff Padilla today. He had planned on joining us this evening, but called a bit ago and advised that he had to respond to a law enforcement emergency. And he would like me to share the good news that Chacon has been downgraded from go to set this morning, and hopefully he will be able to join us again tomorrow. I'm now going to turn it over to the Taos County Manager, Brent Haramo. I apologize.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brent Harami. I'm the Taos County Manager. First, I want to begin by thanking Southwest Area incident command team. These folks have been great to work with. Celeste, Troy, and Pete Smith have been great to work with. And thank you over the last 2 weeks for everything you've done, and thank you for picking up the phone when I've called and the rest of my team has called. Sheriff Hogriff couldn't be here tonight. Kind of like Sheriff Baca mentioned, this is Memorial Day weekend. Sheriff Hogriff is out on a DWI checkpoint. My message tonight is for everybody to make smart and responsible decisions. For Memorial Day weekend, we have up to 10,000 to 15,000 people come up to the northern part of the county and visit our community of Red River for a bike run. So we're asking folks to make responsible decisions, and we can't afford a new fire start. We have 2,900 personnel that are active on the Calf Canyon, Hermits Peak Fire, but our local personnel, they're limited in resources, and we're also limited with our ambulance coverage in support of the Calf Canyon Hermits Peak Fire. Our ambulances are out helping support them, so we're limited in our resources. So I'm just asking everybody to make responsible and safe decisions, and we don't need no new fire starts this weekend. And thanks again to the Southwest Area team.
Thank you so much, Brent. I'll get a little better at this at Spanish. This Alaskan is struggling with it. Anyways, I'm going to turn it down to our partners back on the South for California Interagency Incident Management Team 5, Deputy Incident Commander Dustin Moeller.
Hi, good evening. Thanks, Celeste. And it's Dustin Mueller, Deputy Incident Commander for California Team 5. So I want to reassure folks and reinstate that for this fire and incident, that it is an aggressive full suppression strategy that we're implementing, and that both zones are committed to that. You know, with the red flag conditions coming up in the next couple days, and the worsening conditions we saw today and yesterday, we are, battling as hard as we can to get you guys back into your homes, getting evacuated out, back to the normal as possible. We're really trying as hard as we can. We got up to, like Celeste stated earlier, almost 3,000 folks out here working hard. We have the National Guard, we have all our cooperators, and then all the agencies supporting us in the firefighting effort. So also want to welcome Pacific Northwest Team 2. We look forward to working with you the next couple days till our 14 days is up, coming to a close on Monday. And so we'll be coordinating our efforts there between the zones. But I just want to say, folks, we're trying as hard as we can, and we really appreciate all your guys' welcoming thoughts for us out-of-towners coming into the community. We're hearing nothing but welcome, thank yous in the community, and we appreciate it, and our firefighters feel supported. So thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you, Dustin. And just a couple notes. I know there's been questions on whether or not our firefighters are getting fed and being well taken care of, and all of them are. They're very well fed. We have caterers in place around this fire, and all of their needs are being met. We ask any donations go to the local evacuation shelters or your local volunteer fire departments. They are always in need, so please look that way to help them. In addition to the other safety messages that were passed on this evening, I want to really encourage folks to remember that if you fly, we cannot, if there are any drones within the TFR, our temporary flight restriction area, then we do have to set all aircraft down. And please remember to be cautious around any firefighters' apparatus you may see near the roadway, as well as just remembering anything that can start a spark during these red flag conditions needs to be used with extreme caution. With that, we will see you tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. and stay safe.